some breaking royal news we can bring you, perhaps something that might put a smile on your face. Princess Beatrice.
Fans who have followed Princess Beatrice closely were stunned when troubling talk about her husband Edoardo Mozzi began to spread, raising questions no one expected. At first, it seemed like simple gossip, but behind the scenes, deeper issues appeared to be unfolding. Long-hidden truths slowly came to light. Private matters were suddenly discussed in public. How did things change so quickly? And what uncomfortable secrets could be hiding beneath the surface of this surprising and deeply personal royal story? Do you think that Edoardo might be hiding some secrets, or is it just another royal scandal? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments. To help us create more videos and reveal the truth, please subscribe so more people can discover this. The hidden breakup. Long before Princess Beatrice ever came into the picture, Edoardo Mozzi was already building what looked like a stable and promising life with another woman, Dara Huang. And this was no short-lived romance or casual relationship that faded after a few months. Dara was highly educated, having studied at Harvard, and she was already making a name for herself as a talented and ambitious architect. In time, she would go on to create her own successful design firm completely from the ground up, proving her determination and brilliance. From the outside, everything about their relationship seemed strong and full of potential. They were deeply involved in each other's lives, committed to a shared future, and even engaged, making plans for what many assumed would be a lasting partnership. But beneath that polished surface, something was slowly beginning to crack. At some point, something happened that should have brought them closer together, something that usually strengthens a couple's bond. Dara became pregnant. For many couples, that moment brings joy, unity, and a renewed sense of purpose. But in this case, it seemed to do the opposite. Instead of bringing them closer, it exposed the growing distance between them. People close to the couple later hinted that tension had already begun to build during that time, though outsiders had no idea. Behind closed doors, things were not as calm as they appeared. Some even claimed that there were periods when the two barely spoke at all, going weeks without exchanging even the simplest greetings. Imagine carrying a child while living in that kind of silence, where everything around you feels like it is slowly falling apart. Dara likely understood the reality she was facing. Bringing a child into a relationship already under strain meant that if things collapsed, she would be the one left to carry the responsibility. And so, she tried to hold things together. She fought for the relationship, for the future they had once imagined. But eventually, the pressure became too much. One night, everything came to a breaking point. What started as a typical argument quickly escalated. Reports suggest that something was said, something that crossed a line and could not be taken back. In that moment, Dara reached her limit. She told him plainly that if he wanted to leave, he could go. She was no longer willing to beg for something that already felt broken. If it came down to it, she would raise the child on her own. And one day, that child would grow up knowing exactly who stayed and who walked away. In the days that followed, the emotional toll became visible. Those close to her noticed her eyes, red and swollen, not just from one difficult night, but from months of stress, fear, and exhaustion that had been building quietly with no release. After that night, nothing between them was ever the same again. Yet, to the outside world, none of this was visible. Everything appeared normal. Then, in 2016, their son was born, Christopher Wolf Mozzi, often called Wolfie. He entered a situation that was already fragile, even if no one openly admitted it. Strangely, the story became even more complicated afterward. In 2017, Edoardo and Dara were still seen together in public. They attended events, posed for photos, and appeared side by side, smiling as though everything was perfectly fine. To anyone watching, they looked like a couple still going strong. But behind those carefully captured images, reality was very different. What people saw did not match what was actually happening, because by 2018, their relationship had quietly ended. But within just a few months of that breakup, Edoardo was seen with Princess Beatrice. So, when did his relationship with Princess Beatrice truly begin? Did it only start after his engagement had ended? Or was something already developing behind the scenes before things officially fell apart with Dara Huang? Let's take a closer look and uncover the moment that shaped everything. The truth behind Edoardo's past. In 2011, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi got a phone call that changed his life completely. His stepfather, Christopher Shale, had died. It did not happen quietly or in private. He collapsed at Glastonbury Festival, one of the biggest and most public events in Britain, surrounded by crowds, noise, and cameras. Just a few days before his death, his name had already been all over the news because of a leaked political memo he had written himself. In it, he used harsh words to describe members of his own party, calling them embarrassing and socially awkward.
Christopher Shale chaired David Cameron's local Conservative association. His body was found in the backstage area this morning, on the day a critical report he had written about the Conservatives was leaked to a newspaper.
The story spread quickly across major newspapers. So when he died, it was not just a private loss for the family, it was something the whole country was watching. Christopher Shale was also an important political figure, serving as the chairman of David Cameron's local Conservative association. His body was found backstage, turning an already shocking situation into something even more public. What Edoardo did afterward revealed a pattern that had followed his family for years. Edoardo was born on November 19, 1983, at the Portland Hospital in London, a place known for serving wealthy and elite families, including members of the British royal family. Interestingly, it is also where Princess Beatrice was born. Long before they ever met, they had already shared that connection. His father, Alessandro Mapelli Mozzi, had a very unusual background. He was born in Argentina, raised in Italy, and educated in England. Later, he even represented Great Britain in the 1972 Winter Olympics. His life showed a mix of identities, never tied to just one place. Edoardo grew up watching this, seeing how his father adapted and succeeded in different environments. After the Olympics, Alessandro changed careers completely and became a successful international art dealer and a member of the Royal Society of Arts. Edoardo's mother, Nikki Williams-Ellis, was also building her own career, working in politics, charity, and design. After her remarriage, Christopher Shale became part of the family. Edoardo grew up in a blended household, with a stepfather and a half-brother, learning to navigate different worlds under one roof, something that would later reflect in his own life. There is also a part of Edoardo's background that people often mention, but do not fully explain: his title. He carries the title of Count from the Kingdom of Italy, passed down through his family. It was originally given in 1913 by King Victor Emmanuel III. At first, it sounds impressive, but history adds a darker layer. The same king later signed racial laws in 1938 that stripped Italian Jews of their rights, jobs, and place in society, and helped lead to their deportation to Nazi concentration camps. This means the title Edoardo carries today is linked to a complicated and troubling past. Even after Italy officially abolished royal titles in 1946, Edoardo's family continued to use it. Legally, it no longer had any power, but they kept it as part of their identity and status. This shows how strongly the family held on to its history. That same sense of history is seen in their family estate, Villa Mapelli Mozzi, in northern Italy. It is not just a large home, but a 15th-century property that was once a monastery and has stayed in the family for generations. Growing up connected to a place like that meant Edoardo was stepping into a legacy that existed long before him and would continue long after. For his education, Edoardo attended the Dragon School in Oxford, then Radley College, and later earned a master's degree in politics from the University of Edinburgh. He had access to some of the best opportunities, but none of that could fully prepare him for the events of 2011. Losing his stepfather in such a public and dramatic way forced him to grow up quickly. When your family is in the media spotlight, you do not have the freedom to fall apart openly. You learn to stay strong even when things feel unstable. After the loss, Edoardo helped start a charity and took part in fundraising efforts, including cycling overnight through London. He also supported projects like building Rwanda's first grass cricket stadium. On the surface, these actions looked like generosity, but they also showed his determination to keep moving forward no matter what. Did Edoardo enter adulthood unprepared? What world did he create for himself even before Princess Beatrice became part of his life? Let's take a closer look. Edoardo's Banda property empire. People living along Australia's Gold Coast had trusted Edoardo with something very serious: their money. Not spare change, but hard-earned savings. The kind people build up slowly over many years, often with big hopes attached. They believed in his vision because everything about it looked impressive. They had seen beautiful, polished images of a luxury project called the Mastad Ocean Club, an elegant beachfront development that promised a life of comfort, style, and exclusivity. It all looked perfect. The advertising was sleek and convincing. The press releases sounded bold and full of confidence. Media coverage made it seem like this was not just another property deal, but a powerful international project backed by important and reliable people. To many investors, it felt safe. It felt real. It felt like an opportunity they could not miss. And then, without warning, everything fell apart. The company behind the Mastad Ocean Club went into administration. The dream disappeared almost overnight. The development was abandoned, and the people who had trusted it were left with nothing. No homes, no returns, just memories of those glossy images and the deep pain of losing their savings. What made the situation even more striking was where Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi was at the time. While investors were dealing with confusion and financial loss, he was far away in Palm Beach, Florida, attending a design conference, calm, composed, and continuing his work as if nothing had happened. This is the side of the Banda property story that is rarely talked about. Edoardo had founded Banda in 2007 when he was just 23 years old. Fresh out of university, he stepped into the business world with strong family connections that opened doors many young entrepreneurs could only dream of. From the beginning, his idea sounded simple and smart. Find parts of London that were undervalued, develop them into luxury homes, and sell them to wealthy buyers looking for something special. Over time, that idea grew into something much bigger. Within less than 2 decades, Banda had handled property developments worth more than $875 million. It was no longer just a company. It had become a powerful machine, constantly building, selling, and expanding. Edoardo, who later revealed that he is dyslexic, seemed to channel his energy into visual creativity, design, architecture, and the world of high-end living. But this polished image did not tell the full story. The entire reputation of Banda was built on the claim that it focused on undervalued areas of London. That was the message Edoardo shared again and again in public. It sounded responsible, even helpful, like he was improving overlooked parts of the city. But over time, people began to question that narrative. Writers and property experts, including journalists from Forbes, started to take a closer look. Their doubts grew stronger when one of Banda's major developments appeared in Notting Hill, one of the most expensive and highly desired areas in the entire country. A place where property prices had already been sky-high for decades. There was nothing undervalued about it. And beneath that contradiction was an even more serious issue. London was already facing a deep housing crisis. Thousands of ordinary people were being forced out of the neighborhoods they had grown up in because rising prices made it impossible to stay. Families were losing their homes. Communities were being broken apart. In that kind of environment, turning expensive properties into even more exclusive and unaffordable homes does not just change the market, it changes people's lives. For many critics, this was not an unintended consequence of Banda's business. It was the business itself. Through all of this, Edoardo responded in a very familiar way. He kept moving forward, he kept building new projects, he continued attending conferences, dressed sharply, speaking confidently about design and architecture. No matter what was happening behind the scenes, he maintained the image of success. Even as the collapse in Australia left real people struggling and uncertain, he continued to present control, confidence, and progress. This ability to keep up appearances, even when things were falling apart, had been part of him for years, going back to 2011. However, the next chapter of his life would not be about property deals or business strategies. It would be far more personal. So, how did he meet Beatrice? Was it coincidental or an arrangement relationship? Let's find out. Princess Beatrice's failed engagement. From the moment Princess Beatrice's engagement to Edoardo was announced to the moment everything fell apart, only 51 days had passed, a blink of time in what should have been the happiest chapter of her life. Beatrice and Edoardo didn't meet by chance. Their families had known each other for years. Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson had moved in the same social circles as the Mapelli-Mosey family for a long time. Edoardo's mother even said it herself when the engagement was announced. They had known Beatrice almost her entire life. That makes what happened next feel even more uncomfortable. Before Edoardo entered the picture, Beatrice had spent nearly a decade with a man named Dave Clark. She was 18 when it began, 28 when it ended, a full 10 years of her life devoted to a relationship that left no engagement, no real explanation, just silence. Beatrice never spoke publicly about why it ended. And then, within just 2 years, Edoardo appeared. But Edoardo was far from a clean slate. He had ended his engagement to Dar in 2018. He had a young son. His past was still very much alive. Yet by late 2018, something had quietly started between him and Beatrice, away from cameras and public eyes. By November 2018, it was clear. They were together. In March 2019, they stepped out for the first time publicly at a fundraising event at London's National Portrait Gallery. Cameras captured him standing beside a princess, not just any man, but a property developer, a count, a man with a complicated past. By May 2019, curiosity turned into certainty. They attended Lady Gabriella Windsor's royal wedding together, confirming to everyone that these two were definitely connected. Then, in September 2019, Edoardo proposed. He designed the engagement ring himself, working with British jeweler Sean Lean. The ring had a long, rectangular baguette-cut diamond set into a floral band. Sean Lean, however, was no ordinary jeweler. He was known worldwide for his bold, unsettling designs for the late Alexander McQueen, pieces built from bones, thorns, twisted metal, and sharp spines. Jewelry that was meant to disturb and provoke, not to feel soft or safe. One of his most famous works was worn by Isabella Blow, the iconic British fashion editor who died by suicide in 2007. So the man Edoardo chose to craft Beatrice's happiest moment ring had built a career inside a world where beauty and tragedy always lived side by side. On September 26, 2019, Buckingham Palace announced the engagement. The statement was clean, simple, and carefully written. Promises of starting a life together. Nothing to reveal the tensions simmering underneath. Not everyone in the royal family celebrated. Reports suggested that Prince Charles had serious doubts. The relationship had moved incredibly fast. Meanwhile, Beatrice would have been planning everything. The dress, the venue, the guest list, the future. For the first time, things seemed steady. For the first time, life seemed under control. And then, on November 16, 2019, everything changed. Prince Andrew sat down for a BBC interview, and the fallout was immediate and devastating. Andrew's connection to Jeffrey Epstein was already known, but his interview made it explosive. Epstein, an American financier, had been convicted in 2008 for soliciting a minor and was later arrested in 2019 for multiple charges involving underage girls. Andrew had kept a friendship with him. The public demanded answers, and Andrew gave one, but it shocked the world. He claimed he did not remember meeting his accuser, Virginia Giuffre, who said Epstein trafficked her to Andrew at 17. He showed no regret for his friendship, claiming it had given him seriously beneficial business connections. Then came a moment that stunned everyone. Andrew argued he could not have been sweating that night because of a medical condition developed after the Falklands War. People did not know whether to feel horrified or stunned. Within hours, outrage swept the globe. News channels dissected every word. Within 48 hours, Andrew announced he was stepping back from public duties with the Queen's permission. His entire public life collapsed in just 2 days. Beatrice's engagement was barely weeks old when her world turned upside down. Her father became the most criticized man in Britain almost overnight. Everything around her changed. Edoardo had proposed into a world of control, structure, and royal certainty, but they woke up in a different world, one filled with scandal, public fury, and pressure. There was no turning back, and just when they were trying to adjust, more challenges were on the way, ones that would hit even harder. Why was the wedding breaking down? Was there any issue of promiscuity? Let's find out. A wedding in the shadow of scandal. The wedding started falling apart, little by little. The first big shock came from an old photo that suddenly resurfaced. It showed Prince Andrew with his arm around Virginia inside Ghislaine Maxwell's house. This photo caused trouble because Virginia had publicly accused Andrew of being involved with her when she was underage, connected to Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking network. Every time the image appeared, it cast a shadow over Beatrice's wedding, and Edoardo was right in the middle of it. Then came the second blow: COVID-19. The pandemic shut the world down, and their wedding plans didn't survive. The ceremony at the Chapel Royal was postponed. The Buckingham Palace reception was completely cancelled. The wedding they had dreamed of was gone. What remained was a much smaller plan, almost a shadow of what they had imagined. On July 17, 2020, they were married at the Royal Chapel of All Saints at Royal Lodge in Windsor. It was a tiny family-only ceremony, almost hidden from the world. But in that quiet moment, something unexpected happened. Queen Elizabeth II made a remarkable gesture. She didn't just lend Beatrice something to wear. She reached into her personal collection and offered two of her most historically important pieces: a vintage ivory silk taffeta gown designed by Norman Hartnell in 1962, which the Queen had worn to the world premiere of Lawrence of Arabia, and her diamond-fringed tiara, the same one she wore on her own wedding day in 1947. The Queen, elderly and watching her granddaughter's wedding stripped down by forces neither could control, could not fix the scandal. But she could reach into her personal history, place these treasures on Beatrice, and silently say that this day still mattered, and that Beatrice still mattered. Edoardo stood there, taking it all in. The contrast between what should have been and what it had become. Then came the most awkward part. In that small private chapel, Prince Andrew walked his daughter to the man she had chosen. Whatever he had done, whatever the world thought of him, he was still her father, and she wanted him there. But when the official photos were released, he was nowhere to be seen. If he had appeared, the story wouldn't have been about her, it would have been about him. The wedding was over. But what came next was far from peaceful. So what challenges did they face? Could it be about the arrival of their first child? Let's find out. The hidden struggles of Beatrice and Edoardo. The first night with their baby did not unfold as anyone could have imagined. It was January 22, 2025. Their daughter, Athena Elizabeth Rose Mapelli Mazzi, had arrived far too early, several weeks before her due date, at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. That night, with all its chaos and terror, revealed everything about the life they had quietly come to live. From the outside, it looked flawless, but beneath that polished exterior, pressure pressed down from every side, invisible but relentless. After the wedding, life had accelerated at a dizzying pace. Their first home together was a 4-bedroom apartment tucked inside the historic walls of St. James's Palace. Living there was anything but simple. A palace is not a home. You are allowed to exist within its grandeur not because it is yours, but because the institution, with all its rules and hierarchies, permits it. And this was the same institution that had already begun withdrawing its support from her father, Prince Andrew. They were there, yet they were not truly protected. Beatrice and Edoardo were not working royals. They had no official duties, but they were visible enough to attract constant attention. And that visibility brought its own weight. They were seen, yet not fully supported, connected, yet never fully included. That was the strange, uneasy space in which they had to live, breathe, and navigate every day. Beatrice continued her work with remarkable focus. She held a senior position at a software company called Affinity, serving as vice president of strategic partnerships. On the surface, it seemed normal. A royal, yes, but one who also had a real demanding career. But then trouble emerged. In 2021, the New York Times published a detailed investigation into the company's founder, Zia Chishti. Multiple women had accused him of sexual harassment and assault. The allegations were serious and credible, and Chishti resigned. Beatrice stayed. There was no public statement, no resignation, no visible distancing from a company whose founder had been credibly accused of shocking misconduct. Edoardo said nothing either. Silence surrounded what should have sparked questions, leaving the world wondering quietly, while the couple carried on as if nothing had changed. In late 2022, another shift arrived. They left the palace and moved to a 6-bedroom converted farmhouse in the Cotswolds. Tennis courts, sprawling gardens, a sparkling outdoor pool. It was a property reportedly worth around £3.5 million. To outsiders, it looked like a lifestyle choice, a leisurely retreat in the countryside. But the timing was far from casual. Queen Elizabeth II had passed away in September 2022. The move followed immediately. The Queen had been a quiet yet powerful protector for Beatrice and her family. Her affection for them had been unconditional, her influence unquestionable. When she died, so did that shield of protection. The move from the palace was not about choosing a new life. It was about regrouping, recalibrating, and surviving after losing the one figure who had consistently defended them from the harshest pressures of royal life. By then, they already had one child, Sienna Elizabeth Mapelli Mosey, born in September 2021. A little girl already placed in the line of succession, whose life was shaped by rules, traditions, and expectations neither parent could fully control. And Wolfie, their other child, continued to navigate the space between two worlds: his mother's private life and his father's royal connections. Then came the second pregnancy, announced in October 2024. Publicly, smiles were bright and announcements were cheerful. Behind those smiles, however, the weight of expectation was building again. This was not just another child. This was a new life arriving in a life already stretched thin, already marked by pressures too complex for ordinary people to imagine. And then, the unexpected: Athena's premature birth. That single moment shattered any remaining illusion of control. It was terrifying. It was raw. It was profoundly destabilizing. Beatrice later described it as deeply personal, something that shook her completely, leaving a lasting mark. It was deeply, deeply horrifying, she admitted. From that terror, however, she found purpose. She took on a new patronage with Born, a charity dedicated to ending premature birth worldwide, channeling fear into action and pain into something meaningful. What are your thoughts on the shocking truth about Princess Beatrice's husband? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.